following Chalk Talk is brought to you by Isolite, the emergency lighting experts. Stay educated, my friends.
Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. That's a quote by the great Leonardo da Vinci, and I think that pertains to today's Chalk Talk. Thank you for joining us for our first Chalk Talk in the spring of 2025. I'm Greg Keel, along with co-host Matt Bird, and as you can see, our host today, our Director of Product Development, Evan Ackman, is going to be introducing a brand new emergency fixture for us. If you joined us at Leducation last week, you were able to get a sneak peek. This Chalk Talk is action-packed, so without further ado, I'll hand it off to Evan. Evan, take it away.
Thank you, Greg. And before we get into it, you said simplicity. I think the most interesting thing is, I don't know if anyone's ever noticed this, but 80s songs just they just lower the volume to end it. It doesn't actually end. Like Phil Collins' voice just sort of disappears into nothing at the end of In the Air Tonight, which I find absolutely fascinating. Anyway, happy spring, everybody. As Greg said, we're not here to talk about Phil Collins and how he was unable to end a song in 1988 or whenever that was recorded. We're here to talk about a new emergency lighting fixture. This is an industrial emergency light, and so we'll start by talking about kind of the background of industrial emergency lighting, particularly as it relates to our existing product line. Industrial is a very broad term. Broad sort of leads to some complexity, and we're going to talk about that. And then we'll jump into the Olo itself. We'll talk about how it solves a lot of those problems, kind of brings some simplicity to the product line, as well as adding some modernity to industrial emergency lighting. At the end, we'll talk about nomenclature and availability, getting to some other details about the product, really the product family. As always, this is a Chalk Talk, so you guys are muted, but please, questions are encouraged. Throw them in the chat. We'll make sure that we get to them at the end. So I said I wanted to start with a discussion on the industrial product line as it exists today. And this is basically what it looks like. And these are how many products? 12 different products designed at 12 different times by 12 different people with really 12 different sort of focuses on them. And so there's no surprise there that the lineup is complicated. There's nothing tying these products together. They look totally independent of one another, other than a lot of them just look like utilitarian boxes. Even more than just the look and the feel, though, it's the feature set that really drives me nuts, and I'm sure it drives you guys nuts on the specification side of these products as well. So you can sort of think about all the different things that you have to specify for an emergency light, like a traditional industrial emergency light. The wattage of the base unit and sometimes the voltage associated with it, the battery type that goes in conjunction with that. There's no consistency across the product line. Sometimes you can get a 12 volt 42 watt, sometimes it's got to be a 12 volt 50 watt. Like it's inconsistent. We've done a little bit better on lamp types. We've really tried to condense those down so that everything is LED in the past. But we still never actually got there. We still have some lamp heads that offer wedge-based tungstens. So we haven't done a great job there. Head style, another confusing aspect. Certain heads can only go on certain units. Sometimes they fit and sometimes they don't. If you change between, an ELS and an ELH, for example, sometimes the same head can't work between both of them. So you can't just pick one and then standardize it. And then, of course, there are the options. Some things are furnished with time delay. Sometimes you can't get it. Sometimes you can get self-diagnostics. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you get heaters. Sometimes you can't. There's just inconsistency across the feature set of these product lines. And that is before we even talk about the, let's just call it utilitarian look of these devices. These are certainly of an era. It's really of the era that JCPenney portrait background is from that I put them in front of. And it's not that they don't necessarily always have to be pretty. I mean, industrial applications don't mandate that, but these are definitely function over form. And so that leaves a lot to be desired. It's big lunch boxes with ugly heads coming off the top or the front of them, depending on it. And so, historically, this has been very function over form, very utilitarian. Um, and it's probably because the industrial category has to cover a lot of ground. I tried to put this in something that kind of looks like a family tree. And I think the reason why we got to where we got was, we've over focused on the particulars of like little individual nodes. Like we need an indoor industrial emergency light. We need a wet location emergency light. We need something that is capable of working in cold locations. And so when you spend a lot of time myopically looking at those little areas, you kind of miss the big broad stroke that is necessary to have a simple and complete product line. Ultimately that focus on small areas means that you're going to end up with a complicated product line that looks like ours looks like today, frankly. And so I think complexity is maybe the worst thing that we can do as a manufacturer. Our job is to make your lives simple. We do that through making our product line understandable. And so, why do we have to have so many of these things? Why does anyone actually care about lamp heads? Why is there not just one right solution? What are the differences between these very similar industrial emergency lights? Why do we have such high wattage units that only support very low wattage lamps? You can't actually deploy all of that power. And so, those complexities really sort of breed this world where I say that those products don't really deserve to exist anymore. And so we've come up with a solution, and we think that solution is the Alla, which I would love to introduce to you via a short video now. So you'll see that video pop up on our homepage here in the next couple days. But you can see that our focus on that little teaser video was really on look and feel, those clean modern lines. And this is really why I've struggled to call this product an industrial product. It's really because of that family that exists today. I think we're doing the Allo a disservice. The first line in our brief was basically, let's make this thing look modern. Let's make it use modern colors and finishes. Let's have lamp heads that, imagine this, actually match the look and feel of the body that they're intended to go on. Let's make it small, not big and ugly and boxy. And so industrial doesn't necessarily mean ugly anymore. I mean, I think there's a lot of architectural spaces that this would be very comfortable in because of the look and feel of it. But it's not just look and feel. That's not enough for a new product. It's really down to applications. And the idea here is that rather than having that family tree filled with multiple different products that are very focused on an application, we have one family that spans all of them. And so indoor, outdoor, wet, and cold. And we really went to the extreme for these applications. And so from an outdoor wet location perspective, this product meets NEMA 4X, which is just a metric ton of water. That's 1 gallon per second of water in a very tight jet sprayed at all angles on the unit. Most manufacturers do that test at the fire department because it's the only place where you can get that much water readily accessible. The heater allows for this thing to be in applications down to -30 centigrade, which is very cold. That's probably everywhere but the most northern parts of Alaska. The indoor and industrial version, it's really true of all of the units. This is built like a tank. It's made of heavy die-cast aluminum. It's very robust, and it supports a large number of remote heads off of it. And so it's really capable of being used in all of those traditional emergency lighting applications that you're used to. But we wanted to go a little bit further than just mount it on a box and that's good. And so in order to accommodate that, while the standard unit mounts very flush to the wall, we came up with this universal accessory mounting box that you see over there on the right, kind of looked at from the back. And what this allows us to do is account for all of the different strange mountings that exist out there for emergency lights. And so direct surface mount where there's no box, now all of a sudden you can do that. You can see the little ears kind of popped off to the sides. You can see the direct conduit entry on the side and bottom there. It's also on the top as well. Inside, there are holes for unistrut mounting. So there's a bunch of knockouts in there. So you can actually affix this in a variety of ways at a variety of spacings internal to it. And we also accommodate pole mounting straps. And so if you have a pole, whether it be temporary or permanently installed, you can get those little worm gears with the metal strapping. Those are actually supported natively with this universal mounting box. So it's not just indoor, outdoor, it's all of those weird things that we're likely to see out there in the emergency lighting world. None of that really matters though, unless we've built something that's very performant. And I'm delighted to report that this baby is bright and it's flexible and bright too. So we've simplified it. There's not 50 body capacities. We've basically focused on 16, 32, and 64-watt capacity off of the main body. All of that is furnished through a lithium iron phosphate battery. That's not a lithium ion battery. Sometimes lithium ion is a swear word in the life safety applications. Lithium iron phosphate is a different type of battery. It's actually perfectly optimized for these types of applications. Very high energy density. That's what allows us to make the unit smaller. But also, it's a very safe battery chemistry. It doesn't have that same thermal runaway that lithium ion, like you get in your phone or like a laptop. Different type of battery, but it gives us a lot of longevity out of the battery as well. Head sizes, again, simplifying the offering. It's all LED all the time. 4, 8, and 16 watts. That 16-watt head is up to 1,500 and 31 lumens. So that's pretty bright. So you can get 3,000 lumens out of the unit, or actually 6,000 lumens out of the unit in a 4-head. And it's more than just the actual lumen output. One of the reasons why historically multiple lamp heads and lamp types have existed is because you want flexibility on beam angle. We've actually designed this head to have that flexibility baked right in. So you can't really see it very well in a still picture. But if you look at that line right there that breaks the, let's call it the collar and the main part of the head, that actually moves in and out, allowing for the focusing of the beam. And so when it's all the way in, the position that you see right here, that's a very broad throw. It's a wide throw. So if you've got a wide area, but you don't need a ton of depth away from the unit, or you're mounting it on a ceiling and pointed down, that wide throw is very appropriate. If you're trying to light up really long, narrow aisleways, you can pull it out and it will light up a very long, narrow section. And so without having to get complexity involved and multiple different lamp heads, we actually achieve success in multiple different applications. We support 0, 2, or 4 heads on the main unit. And the runtimes are actually based off of a standard 2-hour runtime. So if you put 16 watts of heads on a 16-watt body, you're going to get 2 hours of runtime out of it, as opposed to what the industry standard would be, which is 90 minutes. So that's exciting. And this is a complete line. I mean, I've been talking about the main body, sort of the allo itself, but we also have matching remote lamp heads. A lot of the same feature set. It supports 4, 8, and 16-watt lamps. A remote lamp head can actually take 1 or 2 lamps on it. You see it over there on the right with a single lamp on it. If you wait for a couple seconds until you see the ordering logic, you'll see it with multiple lamp heads on it. And of course, we have multiple colors available: white, black, bronze, which I've chosen to call terracotta because I think it's a more accurate description, but we'll call it bronze to make it consistent with what the rest of the industry does, and a kind of like a mid-tone industrial gray. And those match between the main body and the remote. It's actually done sort of as a double color. So, the terracotta, for example, or the black or the white, they will actually sort of, there's double colors. There's a contrast color. You can kind of see it in the video. Black has a matte and a less matte section. You can see it right here on the main unit. There's sort of 2 different colors to give it a little bit of a nicer aesthetic. But the nomenclature is really exactly what you'd expect. There's not tons of options on this. Most of the stuff is included just native. Of course, you have to select the body wattage. You don't have to select which battery type or the voltage. Those aren't options. It's everything sort of universal voltage in this system. The body color has those options I mentioned, 0, 2, or 4 heads, as I said, 4, 8, and 16-watt LEDs. Reminder, those can be focused or broadened so that it actually can accommodate any different application. Back mount is the only option available. That universal mounting box, that kind of utility box that we showed a few slides ago, that's actually an accessory to the product so that you could pre-order it, or if you realize after the fact you need it, you can just order that alone. And then relatively few options. Do you want it with wet location gaskets on it? Yes or no? Do you want us to install the heaters on the battery? Yes or no? Those are really the major options that change the construction of the unit. Every unit comes with self-diagnostics. We can defeat that for you at the factory, or we can allow you to do it in the field via some button calisthenics on that button on the front. 15-minute time delay is also an option. That's another thing that you could technically do in the field, but you probably would rather just order it that way and we'll pre-configure it for you so you don't have to worry about it when you get on site. The remote lamps, similar options in terms of color and lamp head. Obviously, as I mentioned before, there's a single and a double lamp head version of it. I showed you the single before. You can see the double right here on the right. My suspicion is that this will be the more popular of the variations. I just think it kind of looks a little bit nicer, frankly. Same head wattage is available. They're actually the same lamp heads. Mounting, it's always back mounted. And then options. The only thing that you really have to select here is whether you want it as wet location or not. There's no heater associated with the remote lamp heads. The heaters in these types of units are really only necessary for the battery, in particular for the battery to charge. So simple ordering, very simple but flexible product line that really can account for a lot of different applications. We got some stuff up online right now. There's a lot more coming. The spec sheets and the IES files are up now. That highlight video that you saw in the middle of the presentation, that's going up on the website today or tomorrow. The spec sheets are being further amended with spacing tables. We just got the IAS files last week while I was at Leducation, so we're going to get those in there right as soon as we can. There's a lot of spacing tables to make, so it's going to take us a couple days, give us a little bit of flexibility there. The product's going to be shipping in June. Parts are on order, they're on the water. They'll be here late May, early June, so that's really the timing for release. We had pricing, but then there's been some tariff activity recently, so we weren't comfortable releasing it until we at least get the final answer on some tariffs that are relevant for April 2nd. And so we're going to let that happen, and then we're going to publish the pricing as soon as we can after that. So give us a couple weeks on that, and we'll get that out to you so that you have it. Appreciate you guys being here. As always, I'm Evan Ackman. Tom, Greg, and Matt are on the line. If we saw you at Leducation last week, it was great to see you. If we didn't, I hope you enjoyed this presentation. We certainly appreciate everything that you guys do for us. So if there's anything that we can ever do to support you, please don't hesitate to let any of us know. If you've got questions on the Allo, I'd be happy to take them now. Otherwise, we'll see you, I guess, after Easter will be the next Chalk Talk. So look forward to that. Have a good rest of your Tuesday, good rest of the week, and happy spring to everybody. See you next month.